And honestly, that was one of the first times in my career where I had, stepped from being the fly on the wall to like, let's do it like this. I commanded a space for once.
Yeah.
And once I did that, he was, he gave me like a look. It was no apprehension though. He was just like, all right, bet for sure. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, loosen up, do it like this, woo, woo, woo. Took the picture, I showed it to him. He was like, yo, you hard, bro. Yeah. He was like, I'm about to change your life. And I was like, man, you lying, bro. He was like, you don't believe me? Come on. Went back on the tour bus. Dino DeValier. People don't know who Dino DeValier is, man. He the one who signed Cash Money to one of the biggest record deals in history. You know what I'm saying, back in the day. But he told Dino, he was like, yo, put him on payroll. And I was like, man, I'm working and everything. He was like, what you gonna do? I was like, bro, I quit my job to do this. You know what I'm saying? And rest is history, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Caffeine and Creatives, platform where we like to talk to creative minds about creative times and the caffeine that wakes them up and keeps them going. I am your host, X. To my right today, dramatic pause. I'm gonna put a little drum effect in it. I respect this man's creative mind. I'm gonna call him a creative mind first. He's an artist. I thought about what his job title should be. We're just going to leave it at creative mind and artist. I feel like artist embodies everything that my guest today has, from visual art, musical talent, agriculture art. We're going to tap into that a little bit too. J Kaviar.
What's up, my man?
How you feeling today?
I'm good, my brother.
I haven't done this on the show yet, but matter of fact, we were talking off camera about I Am Athlete podcast. Yeah. My guy Brandon Marshall does this 3-point check-in that he does every now and then. Okay. I'm gonna try it today. Okay. 3-point check-in.
Let's do it.
Scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
How are you doing mentally, physically, business?
Okay. Mentally, I'm about a 7. Physically, about a 7.
I feel like 7 is the safe answer.
Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like, if we dug deeper into it, then those numbers would change. But I feel like I'm being a bit objective, right? But I mean, mentally, I'm doing great. I'm overcoming some things that I feel like I've sheltered, and I feel like the tenacity of me to get over those things and be able to strengthen what's going on in my life. That's why I put it at a 7. Now, waking up and having to battle that in conjunction with my everyday life.
So we're coming into a 7.
Yeah, we're coming into a 7. So it's like rolling off. We like rolling off of 4 into a 7. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I know where I'm going. Physically the same way. I've recently we have like this competitive thing going on at the warehouse to where we have this basketball league, and I struggle with asthma, and so. Me getting into like very competitive cardio, I'm like, bro, I don't want to be the guy on the court that's breathing hard and tired. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So physically,
imagine being that guy and short.
Okay, but not okay. Nah, it's not okay.
It's like, oh man, it's like we trying to run, play basketball. It's
right.
Like, you already only you need either a shot or handles.
Exactly. You gotta have something.
You gotta have something.
Yeah, for sure.
But you also got asthma. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, for sure. So physically, I'm in a space where I'm like, man, we already have a great, well, not a great. I feel like I know how I'm supposed to eat, and everything like that. I don't follow the regimen I'm supposed to as much, so that, I know physically that's why I'm not where I want to be.
Yeah. Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, preaching to the choir. You know what I'm saying? Everybody out there, get that right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And business-wise, I say a 7, and the reason why I say that is because I've had a lot of strengths business-wise, but I know that tied to my mental and physical and everything else, like Kevin Hart says, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you do good.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And I feel like business is the doing part of the mental and the physical, right? And so I say that once I overcome those things, then I know my business can thrive in the way that I foresee it to be, for like a better word.
So everything now is We on the way up.
We on the way up.
We on the way
That's
up.
the only way
I
to
like
see
that.
it.
I like the I like that.
Yeah.
I like that place. I like
sure.
that's a good place to be.
Indeed.
First question that I always like to ask my guests.
Okay.
Define creativity, right?
Okay.
Within your definition of creativity, what makes you a creative?
I feel like creativity is the acknowledgement of what you have to give and the freedom to give that.
The acknowledgement of what you have to give and the freedom to give that. Break that down for me.
So when we think
I like
about
that definition, by the way.
yeah, so like first of all, to be creative, you have to know yourself, right?
Agreed.
In some capacity, like you have to know, like, what do I want to give to people? Who would I want people to view me as, and what can I teach someone? Mm-hmm. Because to create is to teach in some way, form, or fashion. It's just your way of teaching.
Yeah.
Right?
My friend, not to cut you off,
No, you're
but
fine.
My friend Doc, he was telling me, he was like, I've gained a new perspective on what it actually means to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Before I was trying to learn something to get information.
Right.
Now I learn with the objective to teach.
Exactly.
Which is a different, like, you go about things completely different. If you said I have to learn this to the point where I'm able to teach it to somebody else, then it's a different grasp of understanding.
Exactly.
So I respect that opinion.
Because your focus is different. Mm-hmm. So that makes you more goal oriented. You know, that makes you less susceptible to distractions that come along the way. Mm-hmm. And so going back to the definition of being a creative, you know, and giving people what you feel like you have, is just the freedom that comes along with it. You know, like me creating, me doing what I do every day, it's a freedom thing, but also I'm goal oriented based off what I want people to take away. Because every day that we create, we're building a legacy. And that's what I focus on every day. Is like when someone says Josh or J Kaviar, what am I portraying? Because I don't want to misalign with who I sought after and who people realize.
Yeah, the perception of you and the impact that I want to make need to be synonymous.
Exactly.
I respect that.
Yeah.
So what makes you a creative within?
What makes me a creative is my ability to be humble. I think that my tenacity in trying to get something across and also caring about what people think. Now, I do have a thing with validation, you know what I'm saying, where I want to get that point across so much. It's like, I need you to know that that point got across. But I feel like it's appropriate in certain manners because, like, for me, I just love to give, you know, and I give freely sometimes too freely. But I think mixed with my goals and my ability to give people what they want and what they want to feel makes me a creative.
I respect that.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I think I too struggle with validation to a certain aspect.
Yeah.
And I think I feel like that in most creatives kind of presents itself in different ways. Like
Sure.
I think we all seek some form of validation, whether that be for me, it's not necessarily somebody saying that my output is good or like my product is good or
Right.
anything that I've spent time on is like better than average.
Right.
I think I always seek validation from what I visually see impacting people.
Yeah.
So like you don't have to say anything to me, but if I don't feel like somebody is not bettering themselves based on something that I had my hands on, then I don't feel like it's almost like that. Remember the scene in Aquila and the Bee when there's like our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, it's that we're powerful beyond measure.
Right.
So it's like I kind of fall into that category when it comes to like being validated. Like I always feel like I am good. I feel like people have told me that I'm great at my job.
Right.
So it's not that I feel like I'm incapable of doing something or that I'm less than or something like that.
Right.
It's that like I want my stuff to be impactful.
Right. And it goes back to perspective because it's also how initially you view the impact, because when you have an idea, you know how impactful you want this to be, right? In the simplest form, someone says, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go viral, right?
Right.
That's the impact that they plan to create or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of times the impact versus the perception leaves us in a space of either being validated or the lack thereof.
Right.
Yeah.
Agree. What would you say is with the art that we're creating to be that we seek validation in? What would you say your medium of creativity is?
Man.
How would you describe that to someone?
The art that I create to seek valid. What is my medium? What do you mean, like as far as like photography versus like music or? I say music.
Music?
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is because, and a lot of people don't know this, but I started photography to get closer to music. Music is my first passion. Not it was, but is like I feel like my purpose was to minister through music. Now, and also I had a knowledge of like, hey, I grew up the way that I did, you know, a lot of triumph along the way, you know, that's a whole.
I was about to say, walk me through it. Where did this? Because your background, passion and creativity goes to music.
Yeah,
which that's something that obviously
for sure. Yeah, we align with that.
We align with that.
Indeed.
So where do we start at from the music passion, and how do we get to J Kaviar as he's seen now and perceived with photography and the different many places that you've been, which I didn't add that in his intro, but Google my man.
Yeah. Do that. But for me, I grew up so I had a kind of a complex situation growing up, right? My mother and father were never married. My mother was in the military, and I didn't spend a lot of time with her growing up. And so I already had a longing feeling of that motherly bond that I saw, like growing up watching TV, whether it be Fresh Prince or Saved by the Bell. I watch a lot of Saved by the Bell, by the way. Beverly Hills 90210. Like, you know, that was kind of my thing. But I say all that to say is like that perfect perception that I had of like what a mother and a father would be inside a controlled environment. I didn't necessarily have that. But I was blessed with a mother who I call mama, you know, as well. And I was able to kind of get that experience. But in terms of music, my late grandfather had a church and he knew how to sing. And other members of my family, you know, that I didn't necessarily spend a lot of time growing up with knew how to sing. And it was at some point in my life where I was kind of exposed to music, and I found out like as a young child I could sing a little, right? And the time I would spend with my mom, she would have me on the phone singing with my grandmother, like R. Kelly joints, like, you know, hey, I know R. Kelly is a sensitive topic. Let's drop that right there, you know what I'm saying? But hey, you know what I'm saying? I believe I can fly, stuff like that.
That's
like
real. That was a staple point.
That was a staple point, you know what I'm saying?
I understand.
And so I can say that one thing that my mother always gave me was a validation. It's like, son, you have a beautiful voice, right? And so fast forwarding into, I would say high school is when I started kind of wanting to cultivate that. And, you know, I went through a lot of depression episodes and all of that. And man, I would listen to Boyz II Men a lot. You know, Boyz II Men, I say like now, you know what I'm saying? Like Boyz II Men probably I don't have like a lot of favorites, but if I had to kind of put a list together, they would be at the top.
Yeah, I remember I had remember when we had like the little like the pill-shaped MP3 players?
Yeah.
Like you plug the USB into.
Yeah. Mine was red.
Yeah. I had one of those. I promise you, the only thing I had on there was Boyz II Men, the Legacy album.
Yeah.
I had Brian McKnight's Bethlehem Christmas album, and I had Kurt Franklin's Hero album.
Gotta have that. You gotta buy decent.
Bro, that was like my rotation of music.
That's a savior playlist.
Yes, you feel me? Like I'm on the school bus in like middle school.
And
like,
that was me.
Yeah. But no, I definitely feel you. On
that. And so like in high school, and mind you, like I had no knowledge or I didn't care about photography. I didn't know camera or whatever, you know, and my dad, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to my pops, man. Like he worked and still works like nobody's business. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like my dog gonna work. 4 jobs, you know what I'm saying? So growing up in high school when I was like, Dad, man, I wanna join the choir. And I, you know, did a couple talent shows and we had a group mimicking Boyz II Men in high school, you know what I'm saying? You know, my dad was like, man, that's, you know, they ain't gonna make no money. You need to go do this, do this, do this. And so I end up devoting myself to the ideology of, you know, going to college and getting a job. And you know what I'm saying? And so blessed that I went to college. I got a scholarship to college, you know what I'm saying? And
What school did you go to?
University of South Alabama,
Okay.
Mobile. And so I went there, still wanted to do music, you know what I'm saying? My dad, man, you know, when he watches this, he's gonna be like, boy, I knew you did some of that money. But I got a refund check. And I went to Guitar Center, man. I cashed out the whole refund check.
Man, somebody needs to make a separate content think piece on what college students do with refund checks.
Man, that should be
a show.
You know what? We should work on.
We're gonna talk about that.
We're gonna talk about that off live for sure. But that's what I did, man. I spent like $3,700 in Guitar Center. Like got the whole mic set up, right? And I was like, man, I'm gonna do music. You know what I'm saying? And you know, throughout college, man, I was able to bless a lot of my peers with studio time out of my apartment, as well as work on things. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy that what led me into photography was being involved, right? And so B.E.T came to the school, long story short. So B.E.T came to the school and it was like, man, we need some people to shoot with the cameras. So me, I'm like, bro, like, give me a camera, that ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, woo. And so I was taking pictures for B.E.T and they reached out to my mentor at the time. And it was like, yo, these pictures that we received from this guy are phenomenal. Like, he should really look at doing photography. And so I'm like, man, I ain't never thought about that. So, but I ended up buying me a little camera and I started taking pictures around campus. And then about a year and a half later, man, like I had reached a ceiling in my life to where I was like, bro, school ain't for me. You know, like this environment that I'm in, like I've outgrown it, even though I've accomplished so much. I'm gonna move to Atlanta, you know, and partially it was because I wanted to have a relationship with my mom because she was here. And so I was like, I'm gonna move to Atlanta, I'm gonna take the camera with me and we're gonna see what we can do with this, between this and music. Let's see if I can, you know, kind of make something shake.
Yeah, I feel it for sure.
Yeah.
Was that the first time that you like picked up a camera? Was that the first time?
Yeah, that was the first time that I actually like used a DSLR. Was in college. Like it was like what would have been my senior year in college. I picked up a camera and I was like,
first time you picked up a camera was for B.E.T.
Was for B.E.T.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not too many people.
That is crazy. That's perspective. I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah, first time.
It's like first time. It was kind of like.
I got a full circle moment with that. Like,
yes.
What I talked to you about.
Yeah.
But
we're gonna get to that too.
We'll get to that.
I want people to go on this journey with it. So it's like, so we in college. We're like, all right, cool. Like my passion backseat, because I had a similar story as far as my college choice and how that pertained to my career choice. Because I had the ultimatum in high school. I didn't even know anything about it. I went to Full Sail. Yeah. So I didn't know anything about Full Sail until my senior year of high school.
Oh, word.
Right. So before that, I was going to somebody's college. I had like a couple track scholarships. Yeah. Somebody's college to do something dealing with science. Right. Either way, for me, and I say this in hindsight, like I was going to be an engineer.
One way or another.
One way or another.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the passion side, the fork in the road with me was, do I follow the academic route or do I follow the passion route and try to make something happen out of this?
Right.
Long story short, found out what Full Sail was, ended up going to Full Sail. Yeah. Didn't know had no intention of being an engineer while I was in school. I just knew that I was there. It had something to do with music. I didn't know if I was going to be producing. Yeah. I just knew all the different things. I knew how I could flip learning about audio. Right. Whether that be producing, being a musician, being an audio engineer, doing live sound, doing like movies and all that other stuff, audio work. I knew that I could branch off into these few different things. So if anybody asked me, it's kind of like, well, yeah, like I'm not just going to be, obviously, like I'm in my apartment making beats all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
Yeah.
But if anybody asks you, it's kind of like, oh, so he's going to school like to be a producer? Like, no, like there's this.
There's so many different
areas that I could cover with what I'm learning in school. But I didn't have that turning point of something falling in my lap and then it essentially changing the trajectory of the rest of your life. So what are you thinking once you get to Atlanta at that point? Like, what's the plan from there?
Man, hit the ground running. And I'll be honest, like I was very blessed, you know, for my circle of individuals as well. You know, that was a big part of who I've grown to be. Not only like my mentality of like, I gotta find that room to be in and capitalize on those relationships, but it was also people that, you know, I was around, I was helping out. You know, like my whole ideology is bartering. Like we all have something to trade. There's an art to that. And so while I'm helping you in this capacity of your life, you're able to help me in the capacity of my life. So, man, when I got to Atlanta, bro, I was hitting the ground running. Like literally, like one of the hottest brands at the time was Cease and Desist. When I got to Atlanta, this was 2013, right? And so I was able to be around them, and you know, I didn't do any photography or anything, but I was able to be around the movers and shakers of Atlanta. You know, being up at Wish every day, like that type of stuff, and then also, I was introduced to Sony Digital and Metro Boomin and all of those guys at an early stage.
Right.
And so I would be over there like multiple times a week after I get off work. You know, my partner, he was locked in with them. And so, you know, we'd pull up together and I just have my camera and I'm just taking pictures. Yeah. Taking pictures. And the picture leads to, you know, hey, shoot this little video. Then it's like, hey, come to this show. Hey, come on this tour. You know what I'm saying? And then it built from there.
So did you have a picture of what, at this point, you consider yourself, like when somebody meets you at that time, it's kind of like, hey, I'm a photographer? Is that what it comes?
Nah.
What is your introduction to people at that time?
Man, I'm Josh.
Josh?
I'm Josh.
Just whatever
Josh.
it is.
Yeah.
So what was your idea of, like, I guess, for lack of better terms, like, was there a success point for you? Like, a place that, what did that look like for you at that time?
At that time, because I didn't know a lot, right? Because, you know, when I was using my camera, I kept trying to figure, I was like, bro, how people getting that blur in the background? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I was at. But I'm like, bro, I have a good eye and I'm doing everything, but I'm like, bro, how they getting that blur? Like, they pictures looking crispy. And so at the time, like, man, I was still shooting and still getting those opportunities. And so, man, one of my guys, man, shout out to JBD, man, he lended me his Canon to go on tour with Trinidad. He couldn't go on the tour last minute. He was like, bro, I know you can do it.
Right.
And so up until this point, I was like playing around with manual mode a little bit. I wasn't like all the way on it. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, bro, your shutter speed, when you shooting the show, get your shutter speed, this with your ISOs. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I think I got it. He gave me the quick game. And the tour was like the next day.
Yeah.
So man, like, I think that was one of the groundbreaking experiences for me to know that I could do this. I could really do it. You know what I'm saying? Because that was one of my first paid situations. Like the whole time I was shooting, you know, prior to this, I really wasn't getting money. You know what I'm saying? Like I was.
And I feel like that's a key thing for the difference that somebody else believing in you makes.
Exactly.
And like your trajectory of like what you're doing. Because I think a lot of people in our industry have like a similar, not a similar story, but they have that moment where it's kind of like, for me as an engineer, it's that one time where somebody engineer couldn't be there, and then it's like you're the intern, and it's kind of like, oh, you engineer this song, and now next thing you know, you have like, for me, like I'm YFN Lucci and all of these other people that you're in the studio with like consecutively, and you get all these other opportunities.
Right.
Speak to the, like in that space, like, cause you did mention a couple of names, Sony Digital, Metro Boomin, getting in with all of these guys at a very early point in their careers, and kind of like being able to grow with those people. How important and what were some of the key relationships that you built during that time that kind of like propelled you to what you have going on now? Because I think I asked that because a lot of times it be the most like people ask you how you get like these big opportunities, right? And then it'll be like a very small connected that led to that led to all of this. So speak to that a little bit.
And also a big part of, I don't want to leave this person out, Q.
Go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? Q was very big, you know what I'm saying, within that situation, you know what I'm saying, with Sony Digital, Metro. Like Q was the one who really like, you know, OG Bobby Johnson, you know, Q, like, for those who don't know. But in that situation, man, like, I was learning so much about how to navigate within the industry. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, I came from Mobile, Alabama, and I knew nothing about how to navigate. You know, all I knew was like I wanted to do something, I could do it a little bit or a lot of it for that matter. But the key takeaways from being around them were just learning how to navigate, learning how to manage my time, learning that, bro, your day don't end at 5 o'clock when you clock out of work. Like, you know what I'm saying? There was so many days that I was working at T-Mobile at the time as well. So I'd go to work, get off at 7 o'clock, and I'd go to the studio or pull up to the crib. Or like I'm headed out on the road, you know what I'm saying? Like to do a mini tour like for the weekend or something of that nature. But it just taught me that there were so many different layers to what I really wanted to do. And I was able to identify that within that situation.
Was that overwhelming for you at the time?
Hell yeah.
Were you thinking about all of the layers, or is it a hindsight thing?
A lot of it was hindsight because you know I was wrapped up in the fun. You know what I'm saying? I was getting a break from a career, quote unquote. So for me, I was just turned. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, bro, and also, you know, a part of my self-realization was like, damn, bro, like if they rocking with me, you know what I'm saying? Like I must be really doing this. You know what I'm saying? Because I think what people have to also understand is the difference between someone using you and believing in you.
Facts.
Especially as a creator.
I would say break that down for the people.
Right.
Preach though. You preachers.
Oh, for sure. You know what I'm saying? So, see, a lot of people look from the outside looking in and say, hey, like you're doing this for this person. So per whatever standard is, you should be compensated in this manner. But I think experience is something that's so underrated when it comes to creatives. You know what I'm saying? That sweat equity that you're putting in with these artists and these creatives and stuff like that, like monetarily it can't be added up because it carries you for years and years to come. So I can't even compromise a dollar for the opportunity, you know, and the wisdom that I'm gaining that I can even bring now years later to this platform. And so for me, I had to look at it like, man, like they believe in me. They not using me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And another thing, like one of my partners told me, man, shout out to my boy Nard, like, you know, he told me a long time ago, bro, like, why are we friends if we can't use each other?
Yeah. I said that my boy tried.
Yeah.
He told me, he was like, hey, use me.
Exactly.
Just don't misuse me.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you know, that comes along with, you know, going back to the mental and physical and business stuff. Like you got to know your boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have your business structure set up, your foundation solid, then one can't respect it. No matter how much they respect you, they will never treat you like you want to be treated if you don't have that set up. Right. But all in all, man, like that was the mental correlation that I had between someone using me and someone believing in me. You know, and in the end, you know, them offering up that ability for me to be able to showcase my talent and things of that nature, that's what aided in my trajectory, for sure.
To me, and I don't get this a lot, like usually the trial and tribulations of somebody's career trajectory and their story in their career happen with them trying to get to a certain space within a certain job description, right? For you, it's kind of like I don't want to say stumbled upon, but I stumbled upon this life-changing talent, that I didn't know was there, and then immediately took off. So when all of this success is hitting you at this time, like that first hit of, I don't know. Yeah. Gotta be drastic. Yeah. What was that like for you? Because I know like you've been doing this for how long now?
8 years now.
8 years now. Yeah. So it's like I know it's a couple of valleys. Man. So what is that? Speak to that a little bit. What was like that first dose, or not even that first dose, like just those moments like for you?
I mean, it was challenging because, you know, having a consistent form of income. And then, you know, going into what would one call a hobby and looking at that where I'm not making money or little to no money, but I'm inputting probably more time than I am on my 9 to 5. That was the battle that I had to fight, you know, and of course, you know, as an adult, a growing adult, you know, I had my family in my ears saying like, hey, you know, like, what are you doing? Right. You know, I was in college for biomedical sciences. I had already got accepted into pharmacy school. I did a 3-year, not residency, but I worked in a pharmacy for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Leading up to me leaving college. So I had all of that pressure, you know? And so I would say I dealt with that a lot. Like there were a lot of times I didn't go home, or a lot of times I didn't talk to my dad, you know, because I knew that he had his vision of what he wanted me to become. And I felt like I was letting him down by pursuing my passion. And then, of course, I struggled with communicating that to him in a way that I felt like he would respect and understand it. So that was probably one of my biggest pressures.
Did a lot of that pressure come from I guess, either the amount or the lack thereof of like success to be shown from?
Yeah. Like even I remember, right? So I remember when I went on tour with Q. We did like a college tour, and my dad, he saw the picture somewhere. I can't remember where he saw that, but he called me. He was like, "Man, you took this picture? Ain't you J Kaviar?" I was like, "Yeah, Dad, that's me." He's like, "You took that picture?" I was like, "Yeah, Dad." He was like, "Man, you must be making a lot of money on that road." I'm like, boy, little do my dad know, I'm sleeping on the floor in the Airbnb.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I tried to explain to him, like, yeah, Dad, like, you know, I'm doing this and I'm not making money right now.
Yeah.
My dad was like, what? He couldn't believe it. He was like, man, they should be paying you, da-da-da. And I tried to break it down to him, but he just couldn't understand it. He was like, you mean to tell me you gave up this for this?
Right.
You know? And so that was like, it was a bit heartbreaking, honestly, you know, to try to get my dad to understand and then wake up and still do it, knowing that it's not that I didn't have the support, it's that I couldn't correlate what I was feeling to the person that I look up to the most. You know?
How differently do you feel like that story would have been if it was, I took a leap of faith on my hobbies and I am making money right there?
I mean, it changed very quickly after that.
Very quickly. So was that the turning point for you, or the self-realization that kind of brought you out of some of those moments?
It was one of them, for sure.
What else kind of aided to those?
Validation. You know, man, like just seeing how much people requested my presence. And of course, when I started making money from it, and you know, and it wasn't, in hindsight, it wasn't a lot of money at all. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't putting my price on things. I was so grateful to be in a space.
Right.
I was so grateful to be a fly on the wall. I was so grateful to provide content for people that I didn't worry about the price. It was, for me, it was a life experience that I couldn't put a price on it. But I would say, man, like, knowing at a point where I started making money and knowing that I can tell my dad, like, yeah, man, I made more money than I made in 2 weeks on my check on this shoot. Yeah. Then he was like, well, how you know, he started asking me questions on how did I structure my business? And, you know, we talked about contracts and all of these things. And inadvertently, with him and my mom, you know, that was, I feel, one of the catalysts, you know, that aided in them being entrepreneurs, because now, like, my dad has his own power washing business, and my dad been in hustle for years. Like, like my dad been, you know, I remember young, you know, my dad like pulling up on the weekends, power washing or whatever. But I feel like, you know, at that point, you know, when he started taking it more seriously was when he and I had that conversation of like, man, I'm taking it seriously and this is what I'm trying to do.
That's crazy, because I have almost the identical situation with my pops. Like my dad has been grinder to like my whole entire life, up until now, when we kind of talked about our what I have going on and like kind of like the bigger looks and like the organizations that I'm like a part of now. The conversations have been different now, to where it's like I can even see how much of an impact and like how much it's motivating him with his business that he has now. He owns his own truck company.
Dope.
So it's like he bought his first 18-wheeler, and now he got two. Right, you know what I mean? So, and that's only been the last 2 years. So I completely understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick little break. Hit up some of our sponsors, some of our partners out there. We'll be right back, my guy J Kaviar, here on Caffeine and Creatives. Y'all stay tuned.
Like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage. cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the...
Welcome back, Caffeine and Creatives. Still sitting here with my guy, J Kaviar. We left off talking about kind of our mutual relationship that we have with our parents.
For sure.
Father specifically. Talked about some of the experience that you had kind of being on the tour life on the go, kind of getting into being a photographer on the road with certain artists. Right. One that I have sentiments with, working with a lot of artists. You have been blessed to work with a lot of, I feel like the palette of people that you worked with is very eclectic. Yeah. Which is interesting to me. Like you go from like my guy, Blanco.
Blanco Brown, yeah, my dog. My brother, yeah.
You can go from a Blanco to a OT Genesis. Yeah. Like, the span is crazy. Yeah. I know you have an interesting story with OT Genesis.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
But talk to me about like how the, I guess the plethora of different array of people that you've been able to work with. Like I know you work with Atlantic Records as well, Rollingstone, all of these major publications. How does it feel, and what has that been like? Kind of being able to be like a table hopper. I call it a table hopper because that's kind of like what I was, and I consider myself a hopper in high school. Like I could sit at any lunch table. Like I was with the athletes because football and track. I could also go talk to the art class because I was in the art programs and stuff like that. But I could go also talk to the nerds because I was into science and math and stuff like that. What was that? How has that kind of fed into your career?
Man, it's beautiful, honestly, because one thing I never wanted to do was box myself in. And I think the one thing that I can really accredit to being what I call myself a chameleon in this industry is the fact that music is always the forethought. It's always the forethought, right? And so within that realm, knowing that, hey, I love R&B music, right? So, and I love country music. So being around an artist like Blanco Brown, like our relationship didn't even start off with photography. Right. It started off with a barter. With a barter.
Tell me the story. What was the story?
Okay, so quick. So it was my birthday. I was me and my partner Kendall, man. We went to, shout out to my dog Kendall, man. That's one of the guys I told you when I moved to Atlanta. Like he took me around all those guys, right? Him and my dog Mitch. You know, shout out to Mitch too, man. But we were at a lounge for my birthday. And so I had bought the Just Dons, right? The blue joints. With the leather Just Dons, the two, you feel me? I had them on, you feel me? Right. And so I was like, man, we was in the lounge, I'm feeling good. And I had just met Jay Holiday. It was crazy. Like the lounge was popping, you feel me? So Blanco came up to me and was like, yo, them shoes dope. Yeah. And in my natural response, cause bro, I'm a hustler, like everything for sale. You feel what I'm saying? And so I'm like, bro, you can get them. Like, what's it? He was like, man, you serious? I was like, yeah, what size you wear? He was like, I'm a 12. I was like, hey, these are 12. I died. Like, what you talking? So he gave me his number, and I walked back over to my partner. I'm like, yeah, bro, like I'm gonna pull up on bro at the studio. He was like, bro, you know who that is? He's like, bro, that's Blanco Brown. I was like, well, at the time it was Blanco the Ear, right? He called him the Ear because he
the crazy vocal producer.
Man, the one.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when he told me, you know, when I found out who he was, I went back and was like, yo, like, bro, like, scratch that. Like, I'll give you the shoes if you bring me in, like, and help me vocal produce a track. And he was like, say less. Let's do it. Pull up to the studio, and he was like, man, play me some music. And I played him this song, bro. Yeah. Pressure.
Yeah.
And he know. When he watches, he know. But I played him a record, bro. He was like, man, get out of here. So we talked about that, and then I brought my camera and I took some pictures. He was like, yo, like you crazy with the camera, bro. And our relationship blossomed from there. Like we bartered. Like that was the nature of our relationship, was a barter.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I respect that a lot.
For sure.
So how do you get from an artist like that, and that was your introduction to, like, I spoke OT Genesis. Did y'all have a similar way of how y'all actually got connected?
Yeah. So with me and OT, man, it was crazy. And going back to the B.E.T story, right? I just want to touch on that because I promise I never thought about it until we talked about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy because both times I was at a breaking point in my life, right? When I got introduced to photography at the first point, I was already at a breaking point of like, bro, dude, I even want to do college. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because creatively, I feel like I wanted to do music so bad.
Yeah.
And so B.E.T. Then with the OT situation, mind you, like I'm working with Atlantic Records at this time. I'm doing all of these things or whatever. I hadn't been on tour. I've been on small tours like with Trinidad and like Q, but I hadn't been on like any major tours. And so I was saving up to buy a camera, right? The new Sony, it was like, at the time, it was like the A7 II. And I was like, bro, I need like 3 bands. I'm gonna buy this camera, turn up, right? Yeah. And I got pulled over. It was like what's the game? And I know my partner's gonna be mad, but I can't think. Iron Bowl. There it is.
Okay.
It was Iron Bowl. I was grilling and everything. My asthma started flaring up. So I called my mom. I was like, Mom, can you call me a prescription in? You know what I'm saying? Because my mom is a physician. So she called me a prescription in. It was like, yo, I went to Walgreens. On the way there, I made an illegal right turn. Got pulled over, right? Woo woo. Went to jail for a suspended license for some tickets that I had that honestly I forgot about, right? Yeah. Forgot, neglected, same difference.
Right. Yeah.
So ended up having to, between everything, bro, I spent like 90% of that money that I saved up for that camera to rectify my wrongs, right? And so I went into a deep depression, bro. Like I was like, bro, I don't even want to do this no more. Like I ain't gonna do photography. Like, bro, I work at T-Mobile. And I ended up taking a manager position. I was like, bro, I'm gonna just take this more seriously. Whatever. Man, one day home from work, I was tired. I had worked like my first 60-hour week as a manager. I was like, bro, like what is life right now? You know what I'm saying? This ain't it, bro.
It ain't this.
I done had to pay all of this money just to drive again. I'm working 60 hours a week. Now the money is straight. You know what I'm saying? I had a nice crib, nice car, everything like that. But I'm like, bro,
but life ain't the same.
Life ain't the same because I was being fed so much creatively.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, bro, I had to dumb myself down. And so one of my mentors gave me a call. Shout out to JP, my dog JP. You know what I'm saying? JP hit me. He was like, yo, little bro, I got a gig for you. And I was like, what it is, JP? He was like, you still got your camera, right? And I was like, bro, I wasn't able to buy the new joint. He was like, but you got a camera. I was like, yeah. He was like, man, I got you a gig, $50 an hour. You're going to shoot behind the scenes for B.E.T. and OT Genesis.
That's hard.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Thick video, 2 Chainz and OT.
Yeah.
So boom, I pull up to the strip club, tour buses outside. Like I had never really been a part of a major production. I've been to video shoots and did behind the scenes, but I had never like seen it on that level. You know what I'm saying? And man, I got on the tour bus. I introduced OT and everything. Like that was my first time really seeing a rapper like with that
rapper
it out. You feel what I'm saying? And that's why like even me as a photographer, I'm like, bro, like I'm a photographer. I'm a pop mine. Like I gotta have it. You feel what I'm saying? And so I met him, and you know, long story short, man, I did behind the scenes, and I took this photo of him. And then I took a photo. I was like, yo, let's go outside and take it here. And I started directing him. And honestly, that was one of the first times in my career where I had, you know, stepped from being a fly on the wall to like, let's do it like this. I commanded a space for once. Yeah. And once I did that, he was, you know, he gave me like a look. It was no apprehension though. He was just like, all right, bet for sure. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, loosen up, do it like this, woo, woo, woo. Took the picture, I showed it to him. He was like, yo, you hard, bro. Yeah. He was like, I'm about to change your life. And I was like, man, you lying, bro. He was like, you don't believe me? Come on. Went back on the tour bus. Dino DeValier. People don't know who Dino DeValier is, man. He the one who signed Cash Money to one of the biggest record deals in history. You know what I'm saying, back in the day. But he told Dino, he's like, yo, put him on payroll. And I was like, man, I'm working and everything. He was like, what you gonna do? I was like, bro, I quit my job to do this. You know what I'm saying? And rest is history, bro.
That's crazy.
Rest is history.
That is. Have you? And you said you didn't think about it to this.
The B.E.T. correlation. I didn't. I did not.
But that's a crazy full circle moment, bro.
That's a crazy full. You know what I'm saying? And the crazy part about it, I'm gonna give you something else. And like, you know, I'm a preacher, man, so I like to give gems. But B.E.T., right? If you say B.E.T., what is it? Bet. I bet on myself both times, bro.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
That's the one.
Both times, man.
That's
so
the
hey,
one.
bet on yourself, man.
Dog, that's inspiring as a mud.
Yeah.
Especially coming out of like those. I always like to talk to, because this is Caffeine and Creatives. Like I said, opening the show, it's like I like to talk to creatives about creative times and the caffeine that wakes them up and keeps them going.
Yes.
So it's like, what for you? Like that's so inspirational. But what do you feel like you possess that even keeps you, or even in those moments, kept you optimistic to say like, I'm gonna take these opportunities, or I'll be open? Like, how do you remain open for those opportunities like that?
I'm just a loyal person to the process. So as low as I can become, you know, off not getting some of the things that I expected, I'm so loyal to the process of elevating that I will as immediately humble myself to know like it's something more to be done. So you got to give more to get more. And that's my mentality. Like even with now, like one of my biggest blessings is where I am now, career-wise. Like one of my biggest blessings is where I am right now.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's almost like I was talking to older brother of mine, Jeremiah, shout out. He was telling me about a story. He knows this guy, millionaire guy, super dope house. Like he went over there to meet him, got introduced to him on some like business stuff, and he was like, "Man, how did you afford like all of this stuff? Guy works for FedEx."
Yeah. Dang.
Guy works for FedEx, right?
What you said.
And he's like, FedEx. He's like, you work for FedEx. Like, how did you get here? He started off as a driver.
Wow.
Right. He started off as a driver, and now he's a consultant for some aspect of FedEx. Right. Making crazy money, millionaire guy. Right. And he said the only difference between me and everybody else that started driving trucks when I started driving trucks is I never said no to an opportunity.
That's what it is, bro.
He said, I never said no to an opportunity. Every time somebody asked me, like, hey, can you such and such and such?
Yes.
If it's within my ability to do, yes.
I'll tell you, like, and that's going back to, like, how you say, like, you know, along with my singing and everything like that, like, I never, like, if I can do it, I'm there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because in conjunction with everything that I've always been doing, I've been doing other things as well.
Yeah.
You know?
So what is the, speak to that balance? Like, what is that current, because I know I asked you before kind of what that space of success looked like as a college student, kind of going into coming to Atlanta, doing photography, meeting all of these cool people.
Yeah.
How did that change, and how has that changed, and what does that success point look like for you now?
For me, it's honestly, man, like, I'll be honest with you, bro, like, it's hard for me to acknowledge it in the way that other people see it. Because I'm just so humble, you know, like I do it because I love it. It's hard for me to accept accolades, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, even now, man, at the warehouse, man, shout out Tulones, shout out my brothers, you know, they be like, bro, pop your stuff, man, come on, Josh, bro, you been on tours, you done da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, yeah, bro, I'm hard. You know what I'm saying?
I'm hard or whatever.
Yeah. But on a real level, man, like, it's just because I just appreciate it so much, man. I'm so grateful. And I feel like I have so much to give. And I feel like it'll be a disservice for me to put myself on this self-built pedestal because I devoted my life to be a creative. And all I want to create is teachable moments. So that means I have to serve. In order to teach, you have to serve.
Yeah, you have to.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's a leadership part, but to be an effective leader, you have to be an effective server.
Yeah, I just talked to, matter of fact, my last guest, Smart, we talked about servant leadership.
Yeah.
Servant leadership is so big.
Exactly.
Like, it's one thing to be a boss.
Yeah, exactly.
It's another thing to be a servant leader.
Exactly.
It's another thing to be a leader and
Exactly.
be a servant leader. Somebody who's I'm gonna do as much for you as, like, I don't even know what you can do for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have no idea what you can do for me, but I'm a pour into you so much that whatever overflows out of your cup,
It's gonna come into mine.
and
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big way that I feel like not a lot of people have the perspective to tap into.
Yes.
But it grows you tremendously.
Indeed.
Operating in that mental space.
Got to, man.
A few more questions, and I'm gonna let you get out
Do
of
your
here.
thing. Yeah. We got time. Man.
How do you? I know one way, and we'll talk to it. I feel like you're gonna hit it. But what are some ways that you, even being such a high creative person and working in a bunch of different creative mediums, do you have any outlets that kind of feed into your creative processes in the ways that, outside of the ways that you get paid?
Yeah.
Like, what are some of those? I don't want to call them hobbies. What are some of those spaces that you operate in that kind of like bring you back to that center? Like, you know what I mean? Because being a head of media at Tulones, operating like almost exclusively in a social media space, you have to unplug at some point in time.
Yeah.
So what does that unplug look like for J Kaviar?
Man, as my bro Damien would say, you know, he's one of the CEOs of Tulones. He'd be like, man, Josh, like, I appreciate that because you touch the earth. And that's how I unplug. I touch the earth. And you know, big shout out to my fiance, Mo, you know what I'm saying? She helped me become grounded in that fact of being able to release and you know, also manifest the things that don't get that instant gratification, that aren't shiny like diamonds. You know what I'm saying? And so I talk to my chickens, bro. I have 16 chickens.
My boy said, Paul.
Yeah.
My boy said he got 16 chickens.
Yeah, we got chickens, you know what I'm saying? And I go out there, I talk to my girls, man. Like, you know, we go out in the garden. We have 30 acres of land that we cultivate. And so planning for that, you know, it's the short-term versus the long-term goals. Now, of course, I have that in every facet of my life, professionally and everything. But, you know, with detaching myself from the internet and everything else, that land is my legacy. Because knowing like that, like walking knowing I go out there and it may not be much, you know, but I'm like, dog, like, this me.
Yeah.
This for my family, like, you know, her and I sitting down and she's telling me like, babe, I did this research on how to develop a trust and how we're gonna make sure that we do things in this capacity. And, you know, those are the things that allow me to have a healthy detachment because I'm a workaholic, bro.
Yeah.
It don't matter if I'm working on something I love and I'm having fun, like I'm working. You know what I'm saying? Because my mind is always in a formula mindset, A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so a part of that, you know, A is my career. B is hobbies or, you know, my detachment from that, but C is my legacy.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm able to gather myself, you know, in conjunction with how demanding my atmosphere is that I always have a formula that I stick to and a plan. So it's never too overwhelming, you know, because I know what I'm doing.
That takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of areas that I have to grow in, but for sure, go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Oh no, I'm just saying that takes a lot of discipline. But you said one thing that I found very interesting. Healthy detachment.
Yeah.
What's the difference between healthy detachment and not healthy detachment?
Because I care. People who do unhealthy detachments, they release the care from that situation. So someone could have a 9-to-5 and they'll be like, man, I'm gonna do this. But they do it carelessly. Like, for instance, me working with T-Mobile, and you can ask anyone who worked with me at T-Mobile, and they can be like, bro, he was always the number one rep, the number one manager, in conjunction to being the number one this and this and that space, because I cared.
Yeah.
I knew that, hey, bro, if I have to be up 72 hours straight, my care for this to make sure that I'm operating at a level that no one can match. See, that's another thing. Like, the level in which I operate is unmatched. You know what I'm saying? That's why I get the results I get, because I care. Like when I detach from something, it's calculated.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't do reckless things.
Yeah.
Everything I do is goal oriented. Everything I do, I know that it reflects something, and people were bigger than me. Like right now, what I'm doing reflects something that is bigger than me. And a lot of people aren't humble enough to say that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I care enough to have a healthy detachment, because that in itself is conducive towards the A, the B, and both of those are conducive to the C. It's a mindset.
Doing that, do you feel like it makes actually detaching a lot easier? Because I know a lot of people, like, we might go on vacations or get in our oneness space, whatever that space is that we've cultivated to kind of like detach from our day-to-day. But a lot of times I'm talking to a lot of creatives, they're unable to actually detach.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like, you know what I mean?
If Mo was here right now, she'll tell you he never detaches. She'll tell you that. Because when work calls, I'm available. But at the end of the day, man, like, I look at it as it's all a part of the plan.
Yeah.
You know, because if I'm at home and I'm resting and I'm watching TV and her and I are having our time, and a client calls and it's like, hey, da-da-da-da. Or, you know, one of the guys from the warehouse calls and like, hey, we got to woo-woo-woo. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm quick to answer that, because all of that is a part of the plan. Like, and that goes back to what you said, you know, the guy from FedEx, like, he didn't say no to an opportunity, because you never know. What if I had said no when my mentor called me to shoot for OT Genesis?
Right.
What if I had said no? What if I was so wrapped up into my detachment from my dream? Because I detach myself from my dream emotionally.
Yeah.
So what if in that unhealthy detachment, what if I had said no?
Right.
But my devotion to that allowed me to show up feeling unprepared or whatever, but it changed the trajectory of my life. So when I'm at home in bed, it may seem like I'm not enjoying that time because work calls, but hey, what are we here to do?
What are we here?
We grown as hell, man. You know, excuse my French, but we grown. We have children. We have a legacy to leave. Work calls.
Yeah.
It don't matter if I have to work 24 hours a day for the next 10 years in order to say, hey, when I'm 42 years old, I don't have to worry about clocking in. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I respect you for
sure.
that. I respect you on a high level.
For sure, man. I appreciate that, brother. Likewise,
because,
man.
For me, we don't have enough representation of that mindset.
Yeah.
And I value that a lot.
Indeed.
Especially coming from one black man to another black man, from one father to the next, spouse to the next.
Indeed.
Understanding how those different pillars of your life work, and being able to strategically, but also dedicate yourself to that process. It's a Mamba-like mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm addicted to the process.
Exactly.
And whatever the process calls for, as long as it's part of the process, I'm with it 1,000%.
Indeed.
And I think that's one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation that I'm seeing. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you as well, brother.
Came on here, gym after gym.
Yeah. That's what it's about.
Jewelry after jewelry.
Yeah.
I'm speechless. I don't have any other. One final question, I guess. Which I think if y'all were paying attention, I don't need to ask this question, but I always like to ask my guests before we get out here. What do you feel like is your most valuable habit?
Love. That's my most valuable habit. Love.
I respect it.
Because, love is a verb.
Agreed.
Love is habitual. Love can identify itself in so many different ways. So, like I spoke on, my biggest blessing is what I'm doing now. Being head of media at Tulones is one of my biggest blessings because of the lessons that are surrounding around it. And I love what I do. I love my brothers. Every day I tell them, how you doing, my brother, my brother, my brother, my brother. Love and then outwardly expression for the gratitude of the space that I'm occupying right now is that's the best thing that I can give, because that has taught me from growing up and feeling the lack thereof to being so fulfilled with it that I can outwardly give it in an abundance.
Yeah.
Man, that's the biggest thing, bro. That's the biggest and the best thing for me.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not saying anything after that, because that's the perfect place to land this plane.
Yeah.
I appreciate you again for coming.
Appreciate you, my brother.
One of my favorite conversations so far.
Indeed, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Tell the people where they can find you for these gems.
Hey, man, look, you guys can follow me on Instagram at J Kaviar. That's J_Kaviar. All right. Also, if you guys want to see a lot of the work that I do, man, and this beautiful company that I work with, full of black creatives, man, black owned, follow us online at Tulones 90s. All right. That's TULONES 90S. Check us out.
Thank you, man. Make sure you guys are tapped in as well with Caffeine and Creatives. Follow and subscribe on the YouTube page for the full content. Follow us on Instagram at Caffeine and Creatives. That's spelled out Caffeine and Creatives. I appreciate you again.
Likewise,
J Kaviar.
Yes, sir.
Y'all be easy. Love.
And keep going, man. Bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. B.E.T.
B.E.T. Yes,
Love,
sir.
man. Yes, sir.